Instead of a thumbs up or a thumbs down, I'm just giving you a fist.
The Holler Kings, where the horror's Southern fried.
Hello, I'm Craig.
And I'm Adam.
And we're the Holler Kings.
The motherfucking Holler Kings.
It's all true.
That's absolutely. We're the ones that walk behind the rows.
Where was that from?
Children of the Corn. He who walks
the
behind
rose.
the rose.
I thought you meant like, smelling a rose.
For the longest time, I thought that's what they were talking about when they said he who walks behind the rose, until I saw like the subtitles on one of them. I was like, oh, rose.
Rose of
like,
Corn, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Anyways.
So, this is a podcast in which we talk about all things Southern in horror.
Absolutely.
And today we have yet another installment.
We come chock full of tea and a Southern horror movie.
Oh, yeah. You brought
And
real sweet tea. Home brewed.
made by these hands, sir.
You literally made it?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Absolutely.
Nice.
Always do, baby.
Excellent. It's quite tasty.
Thank you.
Mother's milk, if you will.
Absolutely. Straight from my teat.
Beautiful. But this is yet another edition of It's Set in the South, but that's it.
Need nothing else.
Last Shift is the film. This is from IMDb says 2014,
Yes, sir.
but it looks like it was actually released where people could see it in 2015.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But as you know, I don't have the best track record with
You don't say.
the years of films. But
Y'all see we haven't done any top 5 years anymore.
we kind of strayed from that a bit. But Adam, you brought this one to the table.
I did, sir.
What brought this on your radar?
Mind your business. No.
Fair enough.
No, recently, because the director, Anthony DeBlasi. Yes. So recently he's been making rounds on like podcasts and stuff because he directed a new film called Malum.
Okay.
Which is basically, it's one we will be covering in the future.
Oh, it's another Southern set.
I'm pretty sure it's going to be like this one because it is basically a remake of this movie.
Really?
Yes.
He just got a bigger budget or something?
Pretty much.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, it's sort of like a sequel or maybe a remake. I haven't seen it, so I don't know exactly. But it's definitely in the same vein of this movie. And it got me thinking about this movie. I've seen this several times, but hadn't watched it in years. And recently, I had this big kick one day with my 14-year-old. We decided to sit down and watch some movies. We watched all the Final Destination movies.
Oh, wow.
Which, by the way, are so fucking fun. I hadn't watched those in years, and we had a blast watching those movies. Just absolutely loved it. Those movies are so 2000, it's unreal. But yeah, we're not reviewing those, but yeah, those movies are incredibly fun to watch. So I'd recommend anybody doing that.
Take us even further into the weeds.
Yes.
You know what the prototype for the Final Destination movies are, kind of?
You mean like the X-Files episode is going to be?
I
I
was going to say the Omen films.
Wait, what?
Yeah, the original Omen, like the deaths that happen.
True.
Are all
they're
similar.
all just like
it's
these
like,
weird.
Right. It's like accidents, but they're really like the will of, I guess, Satan or whatever.
Some entity.
So it's always like over the top kills or whatever that also happens in the original Omen.
That's
so
true,
it's very similar. If you watch it, it's like, wow, all the DNA of what becomes Final Destination, the fun of the Omen is
the Rube Goldberg type things. So yeah, I never really thought about it, but I guess except for like maybe the nanny suicide, but other than that, it's all these kind of just weird happenstance things.
Right.
Shit,
like things have to line up for someone to get killed type of thing.
I never thought about that. But yeah, anyways, those movies are incredibly fun. They're not amazing movies by any standards, but they're really fun horror movies, and I love them a lot. I've really got a new appreciation for those this time around, especially, like, I've always really loved 1, 2, and 5. 3 and 4 I thought were terrible. I really have a bigger appreciation now watching them with my 14-year-old. With time has passed, 4 is still not very good. Even he agreed that it was the worst one of them. But I really I enjoyed and I really appreciated 3 a whole lot more than I did back in the day. But anyways, so we watched those, and then we watched Get Out, which he really loved, and this movie and another movie. I forget what other movie we watched. But anyways, we watched this movie. I just forgot how much I enjoyed it and everything, and I was looking it up, and realized that it was shot in Florida, and I was like, that's all I fucking need. We're getting this on the podcast. So, yeah.
Fair enough.
That's what made me bring it to it. I didn't know if you had seen it or not. So
I hadn't even heard of it.
It was one I was wanting to have you check out and just kind of discuss about. So,
It's cool.
Here
And
we
it's
are.
available on Tubi, so it's very
Yes.
easy to find.
Yeah. And Peacock.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I totally watched it on Tubi with commercials and the whole thing. So
You fucking idiot.
give me the elevator pitch. What's the basic bones of this movie?
Roughly, this is about a rookie cop who, on her first night on the job, has been tasked with the grunt work of what a rookie cop would get, and that's watching the now defunct station. There's a new, beautiful, state-of-the-art police station a few blocks away, but there's still a few odds and ends that need to be cleaned up at this defunct station, and she's tasked with performing the last shift, watching this, her first shift, but the last shift at the station, watching it. And, well, while they're alone at night, nefarious things start to come about.
Well, I do feel like one other minor thing is basically, I guess, like a hazmat crew or
It's
like a
supposed to be,
cleaning crew
yeah.
is supposed to come by to pick up some, I guess, is it evidence or just kind of things
some
that
evidence that I guess was unnecessary, and they can't just throw in trash. They need to be disposed of properly. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's kind of like a little hanging thread that's supposed to be, I think, kind of like massaged in early on.
For sure.
Before we move on from the southernness of it all, even though this theoretically could have been any part of the country, maybe even any part of the world, I mean, it's, I do feel like a couple of threads kind of help it make it a little bit more southern than, say, Renfield, our last movie, where it's in New Orleans, but it doesn't matter. For one thing, there's a couple of moments where she goes outside in the still of the night, and you can just hear all the crickets and critters and stuff like that, and it sounds southern to me, like something about that alchemy, the sound design choice. Also, the sub-thread of cults and maybe folk religion, folk horror is kind of, a little bit of an undercurrent, although as the story expands, it kind of becomes something a little more real world. There's a real world kind of parallel, I feel like, that isn't quite southern, but I feel like it'd be a little bit of spoiler this early on in the discussion.
Yeah, we'll get into that.
But so you really liked this movie upon revisiting it when you saw it back in the day. Were you as kind of hooked into it and stuff?
Yes, yeah. Like I said, this is one I've watched quite a few times, and I always enjoy it. It's just a really fun ride. But as someone who watched it for the first time, what'd you think?
Well, I'm going to be a little more critical.
Well, this podcast is over. No,
Thank you for joining us.
Go ahead.
No, my criticism is I feel like the premise is really strong.
Yes.
Like the idea of, the rookie cop, first night on the job, very well established, very upfront. And the kind of like how, like, I feel like you can feel yourself in her shoes very early in the film.
Yeah.
Where you're just like, man, this would be pretty spooky. Like you're like all alone in this place.
For sure.
You don't know who the hell could walk up because they warn her. There's like a chief that kind of passes the torch or the keys or whatever. And he basically says like, listen, there's going to be like weirdos coming up, wanting help or just wandering in, homeless people, whatever. So it kind of plants that seed in your mind of like, who the hell is going to show up, and how is she going to deal with it? They have a couple little moments like that early on where it's like a homeless person walks in and urinates on the floor and is unresponsive to her commands, and you could just kind of feel I kept feeling like, what would I do? Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, because you don't want to just like manhandle someone that seems mentally, mental health problems or
Right.
whatever. You don't want to just like tackle them, and it's your first night, so you don't want to call for help either.
Yeah.
So it's tough. It's kind of tough. You are the authority, so
Right.
you're supposed to be the person you call. So I felt like it was really well set up. But then once the real issues start to become apparent, I feel like it kind of started to spin its wheels after a while, where I kind of felt like a repetition kind of kept happening. Like I felt like the same stuff was happening over and over. And I appreciate that this was like super tight budget and really small cast. You know what I mean? Like, so I think
Yeah.
for what they had, they did an awesome job. Like, it's really like I admire it. But as just like pure entertainment, where I'm like, I want to watch a movie and I'm not thinking about those things, I feel like after about 40-ish minutes, I kind of felt the wind go out of my sails a little bit. Where like
Really?
it had a lot of goodwill up front, where I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, this is great. I could see why Adam picked this." And then as it kind of like kept going, I was kind of like, "Oh, I'm getting a little bored. I'm kind of like the revelations aren't really landing with me that much, or they seem maybe a little bit more straightforward than I feel like they intend them to be." But overall, I mean, I will say that I liked it. I mean, if you want to go that bare bones, did you like it or not? Like, I did like it. And I think the actress, oh man, I've forgotten. Oh yeah, Jessica Lauren.
Yes.
I recognized her because she was
Yeah, I
on
think so.
a few of the like superhero movie TV shows, like Arrow and stuff. She
Oh, really?
plays like Black Canary in it. So I recognized her, and I thought she did a good job.
Yeah.
And to describe anyone else is kind of like spoilery, but other actors in it I thought were pretty effective as well. I mean, and the imagery I think is pretty effective too. Again, I just felt like it kind of got like once the cat was out of the bag, it was like the bag was in the river. Like it just kind of felt like it was, you know what I mean? It was kind of like I felt like it was done, once it kind of started showing itself a little bit,
Too many set pieces. You felt like
Maybe, and a few too many times, like relying, like they had some strong imagery, and I felt like they kind of kept banking on that, showing us
Yes,
that same
yeah.
type of imagery again and again, and it kind of felt like instead of upping the ante, I just kind of felt like they were kind of showing us the same stuff over and over a little bit, so it didn't quite land with me
right.
as it played out.
Right.
But again, like I could see real talent here and like
Yeah.
a cool idea and really cool setup for it. Like I really felt for her situation, and was pretty into it the first 30 minutes, 40 minutes. Buck against me. Tell me why I'm wrong.
I mean, I completely appreciate your incorrect take on that movie. I mean, I totally get what you're saying. Now, I completely disagree with my first time watching it. My first time watching it, I was all in on this from the get-go to the end. Repeated viewings, you can kind of see some of the parts that kind of lag and where things kind of repeat a little too much. Or just in general that there's too many set pieces that are kind of similar to the ones before it, where it's kind of like, okay, let's just either do something different or let's move on. But I don't know. My first time watching it was just like, holy shit, this is great. It like you said, it's not substance like a lot of substance in it as far as being like, I don't know, some movie like some A24 type movie, you know what I mean? But this is a haunted house movie basically. It's just a really fun take that's scary. There were a lot of moments in my first time watching it that were like, oh shit, know.
Right.
But a lot of really good jump scares in this that kind of catch you off guard. And like you said, the imagery of like, I mean, just loose spoilers. You already kind of mentioned it. There's this whole backstory of this cult involved with this police station and everything, and some of the imagery of that with like the bags on their heads and all that is really, really kind of creepy and cool. And I thought they did a good take of bringing us all these characters without weighing it down too much with too much unnecessary story. Like, it's cult. We get it.
Right.
You don't have to do a whole lot. You don't have to explain too much to us. Yeah, I would agree. Some of the stuff doesn't land completely with, like, some of her backstory with, like, her dad and all this. It's not absolutely necessary to it. Just from what you said, you're the first, this is your first night and everything. You don't want to have to call for backup and all this. I think is enough to kind of, I guess it gets to a point where it's kind of like, okay, well, just fuck this job. And you can kind of see where that helps her reasoning for wanting to stay. But it's just not absolutely necessary, especially, with it just being like this really fun haunted house movie. I think the set, like it's hard to talk about too much without getting into spoilers, just because a lot of this movie is just like creepy imagery, scary set pieces. There's really not a lot of story here. It's more about what she goes through in this night at this police station than it is about anything else.
Quite a few psych outs, I think, too.
For sure.
A lot of like setup gags, with payoffs and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, there was the stuff with like the homeless man. I thought a lot of that was unnecessary, kind of. But like other than that, like most of the stuff I really dig in it.
Let's go ahead and jump into spoiler territory.
Yeah,
this is widely available. We said it was on Peacock and Tubi as of this recording. So
yep, and if you watch it on Peacock, there's no commercials. But
you want the authentic old school experience, you can watch it on Tubi. And I'm pretty sure Adam is going to recommend it.
For sure.
And I'm going to give it a possible. I'm kind of on the fence, so it's kind of like in the middle for me. So maybe at the end of the discussion, I'll feel a little different. But for me, it kind of jumps from like kind of a, like Southern cult feel to like a Charlie Manson-esque kind of vibe is what I started to get from it as it plays out.
Especially with like, I forget I know the whole like clan is like the Paymon clan.
Right.
I forget the
I think that's his name.
That might be just his name. Yeah, with him specifically, he does give off those vibes of someone that's imitating like Charles Manson and all that.
I didn't mean that in like a pandering way, by the way. I was getting those vibes.
No.
I didn't mean it like you have obviously.
Yeah, no. I get what you're saying. Yeah, and I agree. That's more what he gives off. The few Southern parts come from some of the female characters, cult members that do like a Southern accent, and kind of like there's one point where she gets knocked out. We have all this. That is one of those points where I feel like this movie kind of keeps you on your toes. We're getting all this these set pieces from mostly like ghosts and stuff, except for this one homeless guy who's really not that much of a threat to her. He's most of it's like ghostly stuff, and we get this one instance where she's knocked out, and we find her really there with a actual tangible real life human being that's a threat to her. But like some of the dialogue she has, she's like, I was like a June bug or I forget exactly what she says.
Sure, right.
But those were the only instances where you're really like, okay, this is pretty Southern. But other than that, yeah, it kind of tries to do the more like generalized cult thing than making it any specific region or anything like that.
In the opening sequence, it's afterthoughts or whatever, or near the beginning of the film, where the chief or captain, night shift guy, basically superior officer, kind of explains the ins and outs of the place.
Yeah.
And in the very beginning, there's an interesting scene where he is like cursing to no one and like pounding the wall and stuff like that. And she's kind of freaked out by him. They have kind of a weird first interaction. In retrospect, after seeing the film, like, how do you interpret that? Like, was he possessed in that moment? Was he just haunted and freaking out? Or is he just a curmudgeon and was just having a moment?
I think it's a little bit of the curmudgeon and a little bit of maybe like him at his wit's end. I don't think it's a possession thing. I think it's more of a him at his wit's end with that place, and him also just being kind of an asshole.
Right.
You know,
because like On the surface, when she first got the job and they described it to her, I was like, in my experience, I feel like an old head officer would want to do that. That someone would be like, I'll do that all night. Fuck
Be
you.
like,
I'll just
all I do is just sit there and not do shit.
I like play on my phone or watch
my
Netflix,
God.
whatever. But obviously, once we learn the issues that this place have, it becomes much more believable that they would pawn it off on a brand new person.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, the gag that did not work on me at all
Oh, okay. Let's get into
is
it.
the young cop that shows up to be helpful.
Really? They didn't get.
I knew what was going on the whole time.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, I knew there was something up, but like the reveal and stuff like that caught me by surprise.
I knew he was like, I knew he was, Sixth Sense style going on there. I knew that was.
So there was going to be the turn reveal and all that?
Yeah.
Really? I didn't
had a
catch
pretty
it.
good idea.
I didn't
Yeah.
catch it at all. That's surprising.
This because he mentioned when he started talking a little bit more, I got it.
Yeah.
No, I shouldn't say from the very, 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 very beginning, but I had my suspicions straight off the bat that obviously he was something. That revelation kind of fell flat for me and felt very obvious to me. And I think it's because they cast a younger person, and he mentions working with her dad, and just something about it kind of felt like off.
Well,
you know what I mean?
It all was just a year before.
I stand by what I said. You schooled me. But I don't know. I felt like it was off, and he was a little too friendly, a little too helpful. I knew something was going to happen.
I agree that, you kind of know from the get that there's something up with him, or even that he's a ghost type of character. But the reveal of showing that he's something else, I was like, oh, shit, that caught me by surprise. That's all I mean. Like, the jump scare of it all caught me by surprise is what I mean. I don't know how you feel about it.
Not me.
Oh, okay. Mister, I've seen Sixth Sense too many times.
Spoiler for the Sixth Sense. Sorry to all the young people out there. What was the part that really captured your imagination? Give me a couple of moments that really sat with you.
Honestly, the reveal of that I always liked, and
I think I just trashed.
the reveal, like the creature girl thing under the desk, and then like
creepy, yeah.
And then like her getting, I forget what you even call them, but like the rose, she goes back in the rose and the
evidence locker type thing. Yeah.
That I always thought was really cool. And then like since we're into spoilers, when it gets to the end and it almost becomes like a video game style like shooter. Those are like some key moments that really stuck out. And then just like we talk about imagery, like when it first reveals Paimon with like the bag over his head and like the pentagram cut into it with blood on it, is just really fucking cool.
Very Clive Barker imagery.
Yeah,
it felt like
for sure,
yeah.
for sure. Yeah, I
cool.
totally get that vibe from that. And I agree. Like she was really good. I mean, she literally carries the movie. There's not a scene without her, and she does a really good job holding it together. Yeah, and then just others like I said, it's really just a bunch of set pieces of like a haunted house. It's like going through a haunted house, but watching it.
Well, it's interesting that you say it is a haunted house movie, but it sidesteps a lot of tropes of a haunted house film. For one thing, there's not kids in it, which I feel like is a hallmark of haunted house movies.
Yeah, there's no creepy
nowadays.
kids in this. Yeah.
It's well lit for the most part.
Yeah,
like,
you're
most
in
of the time it's
you have
garish.
like that harsh lighting of like fluorescent lights and
you have someone that has, at least on the surface, is not super vulnerable. She's a police officer and she seems very with it. So it's kind of interesting that they kind of subvert some of those tropes, the standards of a haunted house
for sure
movie. It's kind of cool.
I love the atmosphere of this movie. It creates some really creepy moments, like the scene where she is and she goes into the cell with like the homeless guy, and she drops her flashlight, and it starts like rolling around, and different people are picking it up and stuff like that. That's a really cool, creepy scene. I feel like it done really well of creating sort of like the sort of dread throughout it with that, and just creating imagery that is meant to leave us unsettled throughout.
Yeah, but the actor that plays Payman, I've recognized him. I think he was in like Walking Dead as a pretty significant
He's a pretty
character.
big deal. He's been I have no fucking clue. I have no idea who he is.
Well, actually,
but I think he's really good in this.
He is good. When I looked him up, he's the only real substantial actor in this movie. Is Joshua? I'm gonna say Miguel. It's Mikel. He was also in Renfield, but I guess it was a smaller
Wait,
part.
really?
In IMDb, it said he was.
Shit, did it say who he was?
It had a character name, but it was like pretty far down the list, so I don't know if it was like he's just a henchman or something, and I just missed him or what. But
It was fucking Kyle. Fuck Kyle.
But I remember him in Walking Dead because I think he was a pretty substantial part that was like over a couple of years.
Yeah.
But anywho,
Yeah.
this is your film, sir. I don't have a whole lot. I soft agree with what you're saying. I mean, like,
Yeah.
I appreciate again that it's a haunted house movie, and they're kind of doing something a little fresher with that concept.
Yeah. It's a really hard movie to talk about, though, really, because as we were saying, I mean, admittedly, I don't think it's trying to be. There's not a lot of story to it. Really, you have a haunted house film, and it's all pretty surface level. Like, it gets into some like cult stuff, but even that isn't explored heavily. We get some on surface stuff about her and her father, who, spoiler alerts, was killed by the Payman clan, and the main reason, I guess we don't necessarily have to give that why they're haunting this particular police station, but when you get down to it overall, like, the story's pretty simplistic. What comes from it is that, one, it's a clean like hour and 27 minutes. It's a pretty quick movie, and it's just like set pieces of like scary shit, man.
Well, it's what I'm kind of curious how they're gonna expand this to a new film.
Yeah.
Because it does. Like, I'll be straight. I think this deserves to be 30 minutes.
God damn.
I mean, I do. I do. I think the premise is really strong. I think it could be like a segment on a Cabinet of Curiosity type show.
Yeah.
Like a
Part
horror
of an
anthology
anthology.
that, where it doesn't tell a big story. I think it'd be really strong as a short subject, but as a full length thing, I mean, I feel like they have to either introduce another character to be with her, or maybe another level to the station for her to explore, maybe, or I don't know. I'm kind of lost on how they can really.
It dropped out that bad for you?
I mean, I think it's telling that when you're talking about what's strong. Oops, I'm hitting the. No, you're fine. When you're talking about what's strong, it's imagery that's just kind of repeated over and over. That's my issue with it.
Yeah,
it's kind of like it's good and it's strong imagery, but like they kind of just reintroduce it over and over.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And there's not that much story that's revealed. I mean, there's a pretty cool gag with someone that's calling 911.
Yes.
And, you know, she's trying to help this person and she's confused about who she is. And there's a revelation of who that person is. You know, there's kind of fun stuff like that to kind of to hang your hat on, to give it a little bit more, depth or whatever. And just another element of just the shit this lady has to juggle. I feel like that they had amped that up just a little bit more. I may have been a little bit more hooked because I put myself in her shoes very quickly because I just thought, the concept was really strong. And I just pictured her like having to navigate these phone calls that were still coming into the station, the randos that would show up looking for help or just looking to be a nuisance.
Right.
This hazmat crew that's supposed to come by. Like, there's like these tasks that she has to kind of put up with. And I think that they had just kind of like leveled that up just a little bit more. It would have been, for me, a little more of a hook, than what it was. One course meal. No appetizer, no dessert, no coffee afterwards. It's just the straight chicken fingers.
No fries?
No, well, no. There's like a nice dipping sauce.
Oh, okay. barbecue?
Ranch.
Oh, wow. That's pretty rough. Well, hey, I don't know. That's fair. That's fair.
What, has this filmmaker done anything else beyond this and a remake of this?
Yep. Yeah,
Oh, you have to look it up. You don't even know off the top of your head.
My phone is not in my hand right now. I'm not typing Anthony at all. And de Blasi, I don't even know how to spell. So to look that up, I'm just playing. I got it. Oh, he did the movie Dread, the Clive Barker adapted story.
Oh, I don't remember that. Dredd.
Hang on.
I thought you meant Judge Dredd first.
That'd be amazing.
With Carl Urban. I was like, wow. Okay.
That I don't know if you ever saw it.
Oh, that predates this.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you ever saw that.
I never did.
It was one of the 8 films to die for. In the what is it, After Dark Horror Fest thing or whatever. That was actually the first thing he directed. He directed Most Likely to Die, which was like a slasher film.
Okay.
It was fun. Extremity, which I haven't seen. I've seen Most Likely to Die, Last Shift, and Dread. He's done some other stuff. Did you ever see Dread or Most Likely to Die?
Nope.
Well, I don't know what the fuck we're doing here then.
Well, let's take this in for a landing.
Yes,
We're at
sir.
30 plus minutes.
I would give this movie an A++.
Really?
No, I'll give it A minus. I genuinely enjoy it. I think it's really fun. The story isn't there, and I guess for some people it could lag in parts. But personally, I really enjoy it. Even after watching it multiple times, I would give it a minus. And yes, I would recommend it for anyone that wants a correct what's that word? Sorry. Recommendation. I would give it a recommendation. What about you? What would you rate it?
C minus.
God damn.
I don't recommend it. But you could do worse. And I'm not saying not to see it. I'm just giving you a neutral. Instead of a thumbs up or a thumbs down, I'm just giving you a fist.
Craig's giving you a fisting.
Well,
so that puts us as what? Like a B? What'd you give it?
I gave it a C minus. You gave it an A minus, right?
Yeah.
So B minus.
B minus. B minus.
B minus still comes out.
Seems like a valid.
I should give it a lower
valid.
grade.
Seems like a valid rating for this movie.
I'm changing mine to a. I'm going to give it a D plus, so that way it gets a C.
We give it an A plus.
Oh, damn it! Fine, I'll stick to my original.
No, yeah, B minus. That sounds fair.
C minus for me. B plus, right?
No. A minus.
A minus.
Yeah.
Damn. All right, so that's a B minus from the Holler Kings. Adam says, check it out.
Craig says,
you can do better.
Says, go fuck yourself.
No.